You're listening to the Cavalier Connection podcast. Here is your host, Jack Lowe.
Welcome into another edition of the Cavalier Connection podcast. I'm your host, Jack Lowe. Unfortunately, not joined today by my counterparts, Jeff Lowe and Jay, but I do have with me out of MTC Media, Marcus Washington. Marcus, how you doing today?
Doing great, my man. Good to be here with you.
Definitely good to connect with you. I know we've talked a little bit offline at JPJ before, so good to get you on here. And I want to mention to the listeners. I mean, this guy, if anybody knows anything about basketball, I'll look over in his direction, and he's watching the game at UVA, and he's got on his phone the Michigan State game on his computer. He has some MAC game going on. I mean, the guy watches and loves basketball. So appreciate your time this afternoon. First off, I want to start off. So you do everything around the DMV. Talk to me about what's going on, anything you've noticed, maybe George Mason. I know they've had a good year. Just talk a little bit about outside of Virginia, what's going on in the DMV right now.
Yeah, up here in Northern Virginia, we're starting to see programs who have the right coaches really leverage wins. George Mason is a primary example. I know they dropped one last night at home against Duquesne, but Tony Skinn comes in after Kim English leaves for Providence. Skinn was the starting point guard on the 2006 Final Four team. So he knew the landscape of the university, and what he's done is he has had the perfect mix of freshmen and transfer portal guys who fit in with the university. And this is going to become a theme around this country, is who fits in with your university as far as NIL money, as far as culture and everything else. Tony Skinn has done a great job there. Last night, Ed Cooley and Georgetown continue to rescue their season. They win their fourth in a row against Creighton. The team, I think, that has jumped out as being disappointing here in the DMV has been Maryland. They brought in Buzz Williams, Virginia Tech, Marquette, Texas A&M. We all know Buzz. And right now, they are off to a very slow start. In fact, I'll give you a little nugget. This is the latest in the season Maryland's had a losing record since Bob Wade. I know all of you guys are too young to remember Bob Wade, but it's been a long time since Maryland has been this unsuccessful. So, but as always in the DMV, we are the best area for recruiting. I have much respect for the 757, but we are the best spot for recruiting. So, it's a high school, college area, and the coaches that are so challenged up here is, what is the right balance? What is the right balance of having the local guys so I can keep those important AAU relationships, but not too many local guys where I don't have the guys to win? So, it's always basketball in this area on so many levels. Even the Washington Wizards got into the conversation yesterday.
Yeah, that was pretty wild. The trades they've made. But I like that you mentioned the recruiting. I mean, we're going to get into a guy like Chance Mallory later, but look at St. Anne's Belfield, for example. If you consider that the DMV anyways, I mean, that's more Central Virginia. The recruiting has been unbelievable. And you look all around the schools that you mentioned, there's always some sort of connection and pipeline there. So I'm glad you mentioned that. It's a lot of fun. The 757's been down. You don't have to tell me. I know it's been a bit down when it comes to the basketball side.
Yeah, and you bring up Chance Mallory at Stab. I had the pleasure of actually seeing him. For those who don't know, I'm a high school basketball coach, but I also coached on the Under Armour circuit. So I got to see Chance. He is an Under Armour circuit guy, team throw out of Baltimore. What you saw at Stab, what you saw at Team Thrill, you're seeing down there in Charlottesville. The wonderful thing about Chance was I spoke to him in June, I believe, and he was talking about the up and down nature of his game, prior to getting to UVA and then getting to UVA and learning how to almost make it more collegiate. And when I spoke to him in June, I'm adjusting to it. When I spoke to him in October, there was a young man who had felt like he was figuring it out. And now that we're here in early February and we're seeing him play, we're like, oh, yeah, that young man figured out how to make the transition from being a high volume scorer, which what he was in high school, along with being such a great defender. And now he's learning how to control his speed on the drives to the basket and where to find his guys and to do those things. And he still brings that energy on defense. Just a great pickup for Virginia.
Yeah, for sure. I've mentioned to my dad, Jeff, is one of the other hosts of this podcast. He couldn't make it this afternoon. Does he at all remind you of Kihei Clark from a few years ago as far as his size goes? Maybe a little bit more careful with the ball?
Yeah, and he does. I think he's a little bit quicker, but yeah, I think he's more careful with the ball. I think the style of play helps him. But like defensively, being a leader, knowing how to get the guys in the offense, knowing where everyone's supposed to be, I think there's a lot of similarities there. Shooting wise, I think they're around the same. I just think that Chance is a little bit more aggressive in this style of basketball. But yeah, definitely they have a lot of similarities.
So we're moving to Coach Ryan Odom and his staff. It's year one for them. They've obviously been pretty successful. What are your thoughts on, him and his staff so far and the different styles of play, completely different from what we're used to at Virginia when we had Bennett and Sanchez for my entire lifetime, and now we're playing quick, we're pressing. Just what are your overall thoughts on that style and how they've done so far?
Yeah, Coach Odom has done great, and I love his style for where he is in this sense. He's very familiar with the area, obviously. And he has a style that in this transfer portal era, he can find players each year that can fit into that style. We're in a transitional nature with rosters as we speak right now. Finding guys to plug in, I think it's easier with this than, let's just say, a Tony Bennett, where you really needed a specific type of guy. With Ryan, there are some things on offense that I know I can go and get. He does have his standards on defense, so you're not going to come here and just shoot 30 times and not play defense. But I think the fit was perfect for Virginia at the time being. They did need a little bit of a change in style of play, just to mimic where college basketball is going, whether it's because teams now can acquire players solely based on finances, the proliferation of the three-pointer. How many teams are using threes to beat twos, even in a limited possession game? And those things. So I thought it was the right move at the right time. I love what Ryan's doing because I know it's sustainable. Even when these guys leave, there's going to be a next crop of guys that come in that fit that model. Ryan was already on the European model before a lot of other teams are bringing in Euro guys. You get that experience in on offense. I think what gets hidden with what they do on offense, because they do try to play at a quicker pace, is some of the little Euro actions that they use that are getting guys in space, whether it's the Ritter or Malik or one of those guys, is getting them in space, and it allows them to use the strength of their talent, and which is coaching at a high level. We think coaching at a high level is being able to run plays. What Ryan Odom does so well is he puts you in space at the strength of what you do well within the constructs of the offense. That is coaching in 2026. So what Virginia is doing now, I think, fits in this time. What Tony did in his time, I fit in his time. But the changes, I think we are seeing Virginia maximize what they could do at that university, one in one era and another in another era.
Yeah, 100%. I've talked about it, with our other hosts multiple times. And, Tony Bennett can't be touched. He's the pinnacle. He built this program up to be a prestigious university. He was incredible. He got the national championship. With that being said, him retiring when he did, the timing worked out very well for Virginia. Very well. They got their guy. You had to do a year with Sanchez, but they ended up getting their guy. And, I don't mind the way that Bennett ball used to be, but I think you said it best. The change in style came at a great time, and it's much more sustainable for sure.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And I can understand why. I will give Tony Bennett this much credit. He identified who he was. And he saw where the industry was going and said, you know what? This is not who I am. I don't want to compromise who I am. Let me step away for a university that's done a lot for me, that I've also done a lot for in return. And I felt like it was an unselfish move on so many levels. Because and I know you see this, there's a lot of coaches who love that check. They will complain infinitely about the system, and you can see that they don't fit into where we are now, but they don't want to step away. They think complaining is the way to go. But I thought that how Bennett left was so classy for the university, understanding I am no longer your best fit. Because I know who I am. I know what I'm not willing to do and what I don't like. And it gave Virginia the opportunity, like you said, even with the 1-year bridge with Coach Sanchez, it gave Virginia an opportunity to take a deep breath, take that year to identify what do we want the program to look like going forward? How do we modernize it? How do we get the monies that is needed in today's college athletics, all of those things. And that 1 year, Virginia was able to kind of map out a plan. And so I think everyone won out of this. And again, it starts with Bennett not lying to himself and the university then doing a great job at getting Ryan Odom to come back home.
Yeah, definitely. And you see some of these coaches around who, I'm not going to mention names, but some of these older coaches, they don't want to step away. And I understand, like if I'm Bennett, I understand why you don't want to step away, but it gets a little uncomfortable because the university doesn't want to fire these prestigious coaches.
Yes.
So there's that. But you mentioned a few moments ago, Tes DeRitter, and you knew we were going to talk about him. He's been unbelievable. He's been a staple to this Virginia team. And it almost feels like if they didn't get him cleared, they wouldn't be as good. Just what are your thoughts on him? And then a part two to that question is, what are your thoughts on the state of college basketball right now with these international players?
Well, his game fits in perfect because, like I said, I love it when they can get him the ball free throw line extended in space and then he attacks, because now his strength, his experience, his ability to see the floor, knowing when to go, knowing when not to go, those little pocket areas where he'll have a quick change of speed. He knows he doesn't have to be fast the entire time on the drive. It's just in these small spaces. You just need to be really quick. And that's the way you beat your guy. His experience prior to coming to Virginia has taught him all of that. And Virginia's the beneficiary of it. And it makes him such a tough guard. What I would like to see, and I know you can only control this so much, I would like to see him go to the free throw line a little bit more, get into the contact. I also would like to see him a little bit more confident. And I know this is just a byproduct of the offense. I would like to see him stretch just a little bit more too, and be a little bit more of that threat to spread the floor. As far as the European players coming over, their model, and I'm not going to get on my soapbox too much. I coached high school basketball for over 20 years. Their model for player development is so much more structured than what we see in the States. And so guys like DeRitter, Grunlow, and you see them all around the country, they come with a different skill set, with a different standard, because we're not trying to win $15 trophies as a middle school kid. Over in Europe, like you are here, where you got guys, some of these 8th grade teams have 4 kids who are reclasses, so they're 15, 16 years old playing 8th grade basketball. There's so much concentration and identification on this is the way that basketball is played, from a FIBA sense, and you can take that and you can port it wherever you want to go to port it. As I try to tell people all the time, if you want to talk about the highest level in the NBA, 1, look at the coaches that they're hiring. 2, look at what they're running. I had a Canadian coach tell me, this was a couple of years ago, he said, yeah, what we run in FIBA now, the NBA runs 3 years later. But you're seeing that those skills truly do transfer. So when we go to the college game, where you have a coach like Ryan Odom who embraces some of those actions and some of those philosophies, and you put a guy that is so smart, so intelligent, that knows the game the way he does, and puts him in there, That's where the success happens. And I wish that here in America, and I'm not saying that America should go to the academy system. I'm not saying that. But what I do say is we need some more structure on the middle school level. I certainly, as a high school coach, I would have loved to have had more structure on there where we're teaching guys that no one cares if you're the best seventh grader because none of it counts. And over in Europe, they do have that system where they want you to be good when it's beneficial for you to be good, not when it's beneficial for me to act like I'm coach of the year because I've won 9 eighth grade tournaments. So, Ryan, I can understand coaches like Ryan Odom, the coach out there who escapes my name out at Illinois. Mark Few was doing it a long time ago, going out there, getting these guys, especially the bigs, the 6'8", the 6'9", and above, because you know you're going to get a fundamentally sound, high IQ player that you can play, that you run.
Yeah, 100%. And man, it's benefited Virginia so much this year. When you talk about DeRitter and Grunlow, now Grunlow's been a bit on the downstream for the last couple of games, but I want to talk about another big man, Hugo Onyenso. He came, I think, out of Kentucky. He's self-proclaimed, and I agree with him, the best shot blocker in the nation. Just what are your thoughts on him, man? He's my favorite player to watch out there.
Yeah, so his shot blocking ability is incredible, partially because someone has taught that young man, well, be the second guy off the floor, which is why he doesn't foul as much as you see some of the other shot blockers in college basketball. He's always the second guy off the floor, so his timing is there. He knows how to use his length, and more importantly, he knows how to use his angles. So he doesn't come down. He's not maybe a half a step behind where you can draw contact on him. Because he's the second guy off the floor, if I draw that contact first and then go up and then he comes up second, 9 times out of 10, the officials are going to give him verticality. So it's not going on the bump. It's not going to be the foul. And again, not only does he block shots, but he changes shots. Yeah. He can step out offensively. I thought against Carolina, he was terrific against Visser on offense. He was posting him up deep. He was hitting him with the little jump hook. I think his role at Virginia is great because they're not asking him to do what he can't do, first of all. Second of all, they're asking him to do it in a set of minutes that he's comfortable playing. I don't think he's a 36-minute-a-game guy. But in those minutes, he can use those things, which means every time he goes on the floor, he can exhaust himself. Every time he goes on the floor, he can feel like he can be aggressive. That has made him a better player at Virginia than at his previous stops.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know if there's anything more exciting than you see somebody going in the paint on him. Either A, like you said, they change the shot. All of a sudden, they're scared to go in, or they shoot it early or whatever. Or B, you see the block against JPJ. Very excited. But among the other transfers, you know, it was a great job Brian Odom did. He came in the portal and brought in a whole roster outside of Elijah Gertrude and a couple others. Just what transfers are really standing out to you outside of DeRitter and Onyenso that we haven't talked about?
I've liked Malik Thomas. I think Malik, if he gets engaged on the defensive end, he could be one of the better perimeter two-way players in the ACC. He has it in him. It's just that balance of I want to be very, very aggressive on offense, and sometimes that leads players today to taking a defensive possession off or two. But I think that if he gets into this whole, I'm going to be the best two-way guy on the floor, I think that he can go to that next level. I mean, he's good now. He can go to that next level. You see flashes with Sam Lewis on what he can do. When Jakari White, before the injury, I mean, he was certainly making an impact, spreading the floor from that three-point line. I know he had a rough night the other night, 0 for 8, 0 for 7 from 3 as he tries to work his way back into this. So those guys, again, just with this whole recruiting class, this whole transfer portal recruiting class, the pieces fit. They can play off of each other. And that's where the brilliance come. Again, I'll give Kevin Willett at Villanova the same amount of credit for whatever your philosophy is. bringing in those pieces that can fit. That might not mean it's the highest paid guy in the portal or the hot name in the portal. And Odom did that, but I do love Malik Thomas. I like where Sam Lewis is going. When Jakari White can get healthy, certainly he will contribute more. For Virginia, it's getting to March. Right now, we're at the double bye, and it's keeping in that double bye and these transfers as they get to know each other better, because that's what you're asking them to do. You're asking them to know each other better because you don't have that year after year carryover. I think the best play for Virginia is ahead of them because of the transfers. I think Dallin Hall is figuring out where he should be, when to go, when not to go, when to shoot, when not to shoot, where guys are going to be. And what's always undersold is not only where guys are going to be, but where is their strength on the floor and getting it to them on time. So if Jakari White is coming off of action, Hall getting them the ball, not simply getting them the ball because he's open, getting them the ball on time in rhythm. So that's a catch and shoot. Getting it to Malik Thomas in rhythm. So now he sizes up the defense. Should I shoot this? Should I get downhill? Those type of things. So I love the transfers they brought in because I think it does fit. And I think that they've gotten a rhythm, but I think there's a next level of a rhythm that these guys can get to.
Yeah, 100%. And I love the idea of the best plays in front of them. You know, they've been a bit on the downside. You know, you have the loss to Carolina, you have the double overtime win against Notre Dame, and you escape Boston College. I like to think that it's just a dry spell right now, and they're going to hit their stride coming up soon when it matters. But about the transfer portal as well, do you have any opinions on, you know, it's crazy now, and it is in football, but really any sport. Just do you have any opinions on that? And then do you have any, you know, anything if you were in charge of college basketball, how you would try and regulate it?
Yeah, I have a lot of opinions on it. I'll pare it down. It hurts me because I coach in high school, because I coach with Under Armour. When you had the COVID exemptions, kids I coach had nowhere to go.
Yep.
Because now you had the gluttony of the extra years, and maybe a kid that would have played and been a mid-major now is looking at D2. If you're D2, now you're looking at D3. If you're a D3, now you're looking at JUCO. If you're JUCO, you might be shut out altogether. That has really, really impacted everything that happens. And then when you add in the NIL portion of it, we have kids. And look, I am a free market guy. I cannot stress it enough. I'm a free market guy. And I do believe in market correction. I don't like it when I see freshmen, 3 stars getting $600,000. Come on, fellas. Come on, fellas. And you know, if you don't play him, then he's going in the portal to transfer. So that's 600 you've thrown away. I think we need a system. I don't think we necessarily need a system that puts in the guardrails on paying, because I think a lot of this paying is just common sense once we start doing market evaluations, and that's going to happen over time. Any industry that's ever been disrupted in the way that college athletics has been disrupted, we're going to see this at the beginning. I know you're too young for this, but I remember when the NFL first went to unrestricted free agency, there was money being thrown around everywhere that was not very well spent. But now, as you saw, as things kind of calmed down and we started being able to have enough of a book on valuations, as you can see, it kind of corrected itself. I think some people are a little bit uncomfortable because of the ages of the people who are involved, because it's 18, 19-year-olds. I think that does color it. If I was here, the first thing I would do if I was running the NCAA, I would go and sit down with our members and I would say, we need to find a structure in some way, shape, or form where we can collectively bargain in athletics without necessarily having full-fledged employee status. The reason why I say that is when we talk about employee status, not only are we talking about things like 401ks, we're talking about medical, we're talking about all those things, but we're also talking about if they are an employee, it does open up the university for more litigation if something happens. So there's a lot of non-athletic stuff that goes with being an employee. But my thing is, this can be settled through collective bargaining. First of all, and second of all, as member institutions, how do we deal with collective bargaining with football and basketball being really truly separate from the Olympic sports without destroying the Olympic sports? Because the Olympic sports should be there. It is a university. They should be there. Now, not every school can have 20 Olympic sports. The school I went to, I'm not going to say on here, we're one of them. We have too many Division I sports. But I think there is a healthy way of doing this where everyone feels like we're comfortable with the environment. We're just not there yet. But I do think it starts with collective bargaining.
For sure, for sure. Now, we talked a little bit about the ACC. I want to talk a little bit more about that. Last year was terrible. One of the worst seasons for the ACC. There's no other way of putting it, at least in my lifetime, really ever. Just what are your thoughts on the ACC? It's looking so much improved this year, and where do you think Virginia could stand by the end of conference play?
I think the conference as a whole has gotten better. I mean, if you ignore the Boston colleges and the Pitts of the world, only taking 15 in might also be a better thing. North Carolina is better than they were last year. Obviously, Duke is Duke. But I think in the middle, we're seeing some improvement. Miami, I mean, John Lucas probably could not have scripted a better first year down there at Miami. North Carolina State took a little while for Will Wade to get things going, but right now I love their win at SMU the other night. I think he's getting to a point where they're starting to resemble what he thought they would be. The middle of the ACC needs to continue to get better. That's where it is. Virginia Tech needs to continue to rise up. They got Mike Young does not get nearly the credit he should get for as great of a coach as he is. He was terrific at Wofford, terrific here at Virginia Tech. So I think the ACC can go deeper beyond Duke. As far as Virginia, again, I think they're a double-bye team. Second or third, probably third in the ACC. Do I think they can challenge Duke? Absolutely. The one thing that Duke is so good defensively, they don't get enough credit for how good they are defensively. But I do think for what Virginia can do, I think putting them in so much space, time and time again, not being afraid to apply pressure on defense. Sometimes teams shy away from applying that pressure on defense on Duke because they feel like there's so many guys who can make plays on there. Virginia, this is who they are, and they embrace who they are. So I think they will pose some challenges for Duke that other ACC teams don't. I expect for Carolina, and I hate to say this, but it wouldn't surprise me this weekend, even though Carolina is hosting, if Duke wins that game by double digits, because if Carolina goes and plays them soft defensively because they're afraid that Duke will get to the front of the rim or wherever the case may be, Duke's going to win that game. Where I give Virginia an advantage is they're not going to play that way. They are not going to play that way. And because of that, that's why I think second or third for Virginia, because of that, they are going to give Duke probably the best shot of any conference team, and that's also going to give them a shot to win the ACC tournament in Charlotte. Because playing those games back to back to back with the pressure that Virginia puts on you, if the depth holds up, I can see Virginia with a double bye making a run and playing on that final day, that final Saturday in Charlotte. So I think they're in a great spot. Again, I understand what you're saying earlier. Since that Carolina game, they seem to be a little bit in the lull. I always chalk it up to it's a long season. You want to kind of get that. But because of the veterans on this team, even though I know DeRitter is technically a freshman, he's a veteran. Because of that, I know when it comes to the times of, hey guys, it's time to flip it we're in mid-February, late February, going into March, where it's money-making time. They have a roster that has enough flexibility and a coaching staff that is good enough that they can make a run in that ACC tournament and they can make a run in March.
Yeah, 100%. I really appreciate your time. Just a couple more for you this afternoon. Really, how? So you talk about March Madness. Virginia's a tournament team this year, or at least should be, and a pretty good seed as well. Just how far do you think you could see them getting before obviously it matters what matchups they get, who they draw,
Right.
but what are realistic expectations you have for this team in March?
Realistic expectations for me would be is with the right bracket, and I think they should get out the first weekend. I do think this is a second weekend roster because, again, they can throw the ball inside. If Virginia really wants to throw the ball inside, they can throw the ball inside. They can stretch you out. They can push. And I am still, and this is where I'm kind of old school, when it comes to March, point guard play all together is so important. And this is where Chance Mallory comes into play. The idea that he is a game changer, and I know he shoots the ball. He's a game changer without shooting the ball. He speeds guys up. He gets you out of the angle you want to be in whatever you're running. He does those things. And when we get to March, when the pressure's a little bit more and you're starting your offense, really, truly, you're getting into your actions at 14 seconds left in the shot clock instead of 17 seconds left in the shot clock. Those 3 seconds are huge because when you play like Virginia, those teams are shooting at the end of the shot clock or shooting bad shots and their floor isn't balanced. Virginia gets the rebound, they're out and running. And now your missed shot is the first pass of my fast break. Mm-hmm. And now I'm getting enough easy baskets where I am winning a game in March by 6-7 points, as opposed to having an upset where I lose by 3. And that's where I think the style of play and these players come in where Virginia can get to the second weekend. And I will compare it to a team last year that tried to play similar. I'll compare it to St. John's. St. John's last year did not get out the first weekend because in the game against Arkansas, that defense kind of disappeared. And then they just could not do enough offensively. They scored a lot of points, but couldn't do enough offensively to bail the defense out. That is not a worry I have about Virginia. And it starts at the point because St. John's didn't have someone who could defensive pressure last year at the point like Chance Mallory can. And that's the difference. That's why I think this is a second weekend team.
100%. I really appreciate your time this afternoon, Marcus. Let the people know what you got going on at MTC. I think you're going to Maryland tonight, aren't you?
Yes, I have Maryland, Ohio State tonight this weekend. There is a whole host of games that I'll probably either cover or maybe because of time I won't be able to cover. But yeah, you can just find me on Twitter at MTC Media Sports. I'm always on there. I am everywhere in the DMV. I go as far as Charlottesville. I go as high as College Park. But basketball it's my life. So I would say I'm in the gym probably at least 6 days a week. And look, if you see me at a game, and I've always said this, if you see me at a game, be sure you stop and say hello, because I'm one of those guys who love to communicate, because you know what? Guys like me don't get the opportunities that I have gotten if the other end of people consuming my content and stuff like that aren't there. So I appreciate everyone who comes up, even if it's hey, what's up? Hey, I saw you on the internet. Hey, I saw you there. Be sure, because it does my heart good, and I want to say thank you to you.
100%. Thank you so much for your time, Marcus. And
Sure.
Go check him out if you're listening right now at MTC Media Sports. He's got all sorts of recaps and stuff you can always check out. And that's going to wrap us up this afternoon. And thanks for your time, Marcus.
Thank you very much, my man.
Big thanks to Marcus Washington for jumping on here with me this afternoon. Go check out the website, the Cavalier Connection Podcast. or excuse me, the CavalierConnection.com, as well as at Go Who's podcast on the X and all the other social medias at Cavalier Connection. That's going to wrap us up tonight. Go Who's.